Alright, welcome back here in the Public Show. We want to talk about a topic that is in the headlines of all the dailies as well, and it's really something that is causing a lot of concern across the education sector and indeed in the country in general. And of course, this morning, to help us put that into perspective, we have Janet, right? I always say Jen. It's okay, Jen. Jen Mudomi also to help us put that into perspective, and also of course Joy Mudengi. I
will just contribute to the discussion. Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic obviously that everyone's talking about, so much to talk about, and so many different angles. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about just the psyche of some of these students, and that are causing and leading to all the unrest that we're seeing in schools. Of course, we saw in Kisii County earlier on in the week, and if we do the research, this is not a new phenomenon that is happening in Kenyan schools. Can you give us a little bit of background of student unrest in Kenya and where this all came from?
Well, yeah, I think everybody that has gone through the school system can attest to the fact that at some point in their life there was this sort of tension and so on, and it escalates all the way. I think secondary schools, but also the universities. This is something like it's a general given that in the university at every stage in your life at least you must have gone through some riot. But I think what is worrying now is the kind of intensity that this unrest is coming with, and I think that is what has gotten every other person so concerned, because you just can't have a few boys bringing down an entire establishment on its knees. And far back, Kenyans remember with fear the issue of Changuli, and much recently the Nyeri High issue. And I think nobody is anticipating that this will not come to a stop, because if a few boys can wake up and decide that they are putting down the entire institution, God forbid that there were people in the dormitory sleeping, because now we could be counting numbers, and one cannot distance what is happening now to terrorism and and so on, because clearly we have to move to a level where we call things as we see them. That this has been done by our children and not the Al-Shabaab does not make it any better. Exactly. It's just the same, and it just has to be called like that. And I think some of the issues that are disturbing is that Kenyans do not know the closure, like for example in Changuli, how was the case closed? For example, who was held accountable? Nyeri High, who was held accountable? And so on and so forth, because now we're talking about Tengecha, we are talking about Itiero, and we want to see a close to these issues, because you're no longer comfortable just subjecting a few people to disciplinary processes that are neither here nor there, and then transfers. And we are saying that even if you're a child, you are a criminal. It doesn't mean that because you're below 18 years, you can be let, to just go scot-free. And I think those are some of the issues that we want to brought out, because as long as the closures of these issues is just going to be haphazard, it will not deter more people from engaging in the same.
Was the move by the CS? He said, for example, the transfer. He was arguing that those who maybe are found culpable and they are suspended or expelled, they're normally taken from that school and they go to another school, and therefore they transfer. They won't
be allowed.
That's the problem.
I think that is generally expected, because we are saying that you're not going to mess up one institution and then you just transfer to another institution and possibly just go to poison other children over there. But I think that is so mild. That's what we are saying. That I think that is so mild, and I think it's at this point where we are calling on the Inspector General of Police. I think this is criminal. This is a criminal activity, and we want to see how many people, for example, have been held. It doesn't matter, even the principal of that institution, because he's the person that is responsible of that institution at that particular time. He must be able to give an account, and I think for me, it's a little bit funny when it happens to the education sector, that the education sector is the only one where things such as this one will take place, and there is no arrest whatsoever. Why? Because these are our children, the moral fiber of the society. No, these are the school heads. No, we have a TSC code of conduct. It is not working for us. It's just not working for us. So we just got to put our foot down and call this one a criminal act, and demand from the Inspector General of Police arrests and due process, you know, because criminals are just criminals, and anyway, it is in the best interest of those children to process them through a criminal justice system so that they can also be helped. Because it doesn't, you know, help you when you're a criminal. We just allow you in the society to become a criminal. You will just end up in committee at some point of your life. So it is in our best interest as society to process these people, you know, in the best way possible, so that we help them and also we're able to help ourselves. And it will also send shocks, you know. Because I think up to yesterday there is also another school, you know, that was banned.
Right after.
So it tells you that everybody is sitting cool knowing that, really nothing much will happen to us. After all, our parents will be charged. They will pay. I will be looked for a private school, because you're telling the CS. This should not only be the case for public schools. Don't bar public schools, you know, only from transferring. Even the private schools, nobody should admit a criminal into their school.
Yeah, and for you to articulate that word criminal, I think is so important, because it's trivialized the issue as just a rite of passage. If you're going to a Kenyan, you know, high school, university, this is something that happens. So, you know, the issues are dealt with maybe internally, children are given punishment, but we don't look at this as a criminal issue. So I think that would be a huge change if we...
and I think also other issues, because here we are talking about everybody taking their bit of responsibility. It is not just fair to say that the head of the institution or the teachers on duty, for example, are the only people that, for example, should explain to us, you know, what happens. But there are watchmen, you know, and all these other subordinate or non-teaching staff, if you wish to call them like that. You know, they were in the institution. In those institutions, at the time this was happening, they should also be held to account. There is a board of management of that institution, because I think for me this is the highest level of indictment of any board of management. What are you managing? If an entire institution can be brought on its knees, then that's what we are saying. There are several institutions here, because every other time we keep crying that the moral fiber, but it's just not working, and we are not going to hide ourselves under the moral fiber. Let's leave that for now, because we have institutions that are established to check this moral fiber if it's no longer working for us. And these institutions have got to be the police. The Inspector General of Police must be able to tell us and to give us an account, because it happened elsewhere. What have they done? The Teacher Service Commission, let them not tell us about the code of conduct, let them not tell us about due process. We're talking about serious matters here. And that due process, fine, let it happen. But what has been the due process of the previous cases that have happened? Because we're also breeding institutions that are also bushes, where people are hiding, you know, under. That it is not the Ministry of Education, it is the TSC. The TSC is doing that. Okay, when is this going to happen? You know, and because the institutions we have must be accountable. And the CS also, beyond, you know, the guidelines that are being given. By now, the boards of management of those schools ought to have been dissolved long time ago, because people have to be responsible. People, what are you managing? You know, because it goes beyond, and that is why we are saying as Kenyans at some point, we will have to review. You know, how do you become a head of an institution? Is it just about curriculum management? No, more dynamics are emerging. In fact, even stakeholder management is emerging, because some of the schools in Kisii, they are talking about clan conflict and so on. So you cannot just be a head of an institution and just tell us that you're just getting a mean of 5. No, you must be able to manage stakeholder, the expectations of the stakeholders. You must be able to manage resources. Security now is a key issue. We have been complaining in this country that secondary schools are charging, you know, in their hundreds and so on and so forth. Yet, very few of them are thinking about investing in security. The only thing they will invest in is the buses, because at the end of the day, the bus will be hired by so and so and bring in extra resources. What happens to things like, for example, we are seeing other schools installing even CCTV cameras, and anyway, they have computers in there. But what is happening is that we are having very high level incompetency in the management of our schools. What is the Teacher Service Commission doing about it? In this country, we have a culture of non-accountability. The Teacher Service Commission will hide under a code of conduct and talk to you about due process. We do not want to hear about due process. And this we are sending very strong messages. As a limited correction from here, we are going to the Teacher Service Commission. Can you demonstrate to us? Who have you held to account? Because if Teacher Service Commission leaders are not working for us, they have to go. The Inspector General of Police, what are you doing? You know, because you just can't have criminals masquerading for learners, and we're just allowing it, and they're saying the parents have not done ABCD for them. And what we're saying is, if your child can be processed through the criminal justice system, as a parent, it can hit you the most, because you have to be there with them. Because we also are saying the parents have also been a little bit aloof. you know, where parents just don't care about what their children become and they just send them to school. It will not become national crisis just because a few parents have decided to abdicate their responsibilities. They squarely must face it with their children. If you're bringing up a criminal, it's up to you. Please let them be processed in the correct way, and let parents pay for particular damages, because it's just becoming so frustrating when every other thing is mentioned and parents are just not there. They're not present within the education sector. You're leaving everything for teachers. What will happen for teachers is that they'll be processed by the TSC. They'll either be dismissed or transferred or something like that. But what happens to you as a parent? Your child will go to jail because they are juvenile courts, you know, and you will have to foot the bill. So parents must feel the pinch so that they get involved, know what your children eat. Because the issue of drugs also is coming in, you know, to complicate the whole process. And I would tell you, not in any way that I'm defending the principals and the teachers. They've tried, you know, some of them have tried their level best, but the parents are letting them down. Why? Because during holidays, we parents don't care what our children eat or drink. We've just all this freedom, we are too busy with our jobs and everything else. So how do we expect teachers to manage your child when they come back and they have all these substances with them?
And you just send them back to school.
Yes,
you know?
And that is why we are saying, let everybody carry their responsibility, and that let's put this madness to a stop.
And also, if you look at this incident, there have been a lot of arguments, this latest incident, about, because the boys wanted to watch football, and they were told, they were denied that access. So there is two schools of thought. There is, well, it's just basically just a 90-minute match. They would have been left to watch it. Then there is the one for, is it there, while there is supposed to be a balance, is the core. Basically, the parents will say, kwani mulienda kuona football. So what happens in such a scenario?
I think the issues that are coming up, and then from the stakeholders meeting of yesterday that was convened by the CS, there are concerns of high-handedness, you know, on the level of principals, and some of who are managing schools, and we do appreciate, because they're doing that in good faith. You know, they're doing that in good faith. You know, definitely they would want the boys settled in class, you know, all the while, so that they can be able to get good grades. We do appreciate, but then again, you know, we have to get to a point where we appreciate, you know, and we appreciate the where we are, you know, in the 21st century, you know, and just allow some degree or some level of flexibility. And at the same time, what was coming out is the total infidelity to the policies of government. In this country, we have schools that operate between 4 a.m. Children wake up at 4 a.m. and they go to bed at 10 p.m. It's in good faith, we do agree. Is that the policy of the Ministry of Education? No. That's a local arrangement for the school. Is it comfortable for the students? Because we you know, we have a lot of democratic space. You will rule the boys with the sticks and so on and so forth, but the rebellion will come out at some point. In this way, we are saying, can we strike a balance between the goodwill of wanting to have everyone doing this, but allowing some level of discussion, and the voices of the students, and the voices of the students in there, in all those amendments that you're trying to do, all this in the name of making sure that these learners, you know, are able to pass the exam. And it brings us to, why are we educating and why are we doing all this? Is it just about to get an A? You know, one of the teachers was telling me that some boys in their school told them, me, I don't want to get that A. So, you know, all these things are waking me so early. Can I be let, you know, to operate within my devices? You know, it looks unrealistic, but teachers must appreciate that we are handling a different breed of children now. It is not like us, you know, when the only thing we knew was books. There was no internet, you know, when some of us were going to school.
There was no option.
There was no option. But you see, times have changed, and that is why we are saying we have to reevaluate the management and the people that are managing our schools. Do we honestly think that the only education they should get is that issue of curriculum implementation in the school level? And I say no. We need management concepts, and we need managers managing those schools now, because the dynamics have absolutely changed, and we can no longer do things the way we were doing them 5 years ago, apparently, not even 10 or 20, because some of those principals have been principals for 20 years, and somebody will tell you, I have managed this school for 20 years. That is not important. It's not what is counting, but how are you able to change with the times, you know? How are you able to accommodate all these other diversities? And that is what will make you a very successful principal at the end of the day.
I think a huge discussion that people have been having, whether you're a parent or not, is just a concern of as a society, what does it say about us? That we are just producing hooligans into society, that, you know, they go on into university levels, continue this. People are outraged of what this says about us. And as you were mentioning earlier, we hear about terrorism attacks all over the world, such as in Turkey and other places. And yet we are harboring the same at home. So as a society, what do you think we can do to change this? And you know, a lot of people aren't in positions of power, but they're concerned and want to know what we can do better.
Wow, I think sharing yesterday with a number of principals, some of them were expressing a few issues that are really you know, concerning in terms of you know, what are some of the institutions, for example, that are charged with at least boosting or you know, developing the values, you know, in society, and you'd count in there the church, you'd count in there the family. But is the church of today, you know, anything that, you know, the church itself has got its own issues, so we give up, you know, going there. And family. And then some of those teachers are reporting that a good number of their children come from dysfunctional families. You know, so you can no longer count on some of those families to be able to be the ones raising their children, you know, in the value case, the value systems that we've all agreed to. So what does that leave us to? That leaves us with the institutions that we have. If we've got strong institutions that now can implement the policies and the laws that exist, then I think we can be safe there. Because we can't, that we have a society, because look at what was happening the other time when we had the riots, you know, the anti-IEBC riots, and you had people destroying properties and no action taken against them. So assuming those boys were in midterm and they participated in the stone throwing and you know, demolishing of, you know, hitting supermarkets and so on, and clearly nothing was done to them. They went home pretty and they were narrating that this is what we did. When they go back to school, why won't they do that? So that's why we are saying probably as a society, yes, this is something that we have to live with. But at institutional level, for example, when you hit the school, there are rules and regulations. So we are expecting very robust, you know, operations within the school. We are expecting there are institutions such as the Student Governing Council. You know, those interactions should be able to bring out some of these issues. If they are learners who are abusing drugs, it should be able to come out, you know, at a very early stage. But I think from the meeting of yesterday, some of the concerns that were coming out is that we have also sort of a fallen, or if not weak, totally fallen guidance and counseling system at the school level, where you have the guidance and counseling teacher, but they have all this number of subjects that they have to teach and still deliver on the guidance and counseling, and still look at the quality of themselves as guiding and counseling teachers. A good number of them have just been handpicked due to their goodwill, you know, of just wanting to get concerned, you know, with student issues. Then they're told you are the guidance and counseling teacher. What amount of training, you know, or what amount of knowledge does that guidance and counseling teacher, you know, possess, and how can they be able to turn, you know, student lives around? So that is also, you know, a problem at school level, and is why we are saying that something else that has totally failed, and it's a big shame because it's something that keeps coming up. The county directors of education of the Ministry of Education are just shambling. It's something different. They are not aware. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Absolutely, because some of the reports that are coming out is neither here nor there. We just have people just posted all over the counties. You know, they have got no idea. You get somebody, they have a school about a few meters away, but they've never visited the school. They don't know what's happening. And I think the education sector is sickening, because the only job description they seem to know is collecting money from people and conducting funny activities, games, and as long as there's somewhere minting money, they are in for it. But when you talk about the softwares to improve learning environment, they are totally absent, not aware, and they're not there. So it's really a tall order. And sometimes when you listen to discussions, you know, among fellow Kenyans, everybody will say the CS must go. He's not doing this. But the CS, we've got a new one. You know, he's barely a few months old there. But we've got professionals, you know, and people who call themselves educators within that. We've got task force reports in that ministry of previous unrest, you know, cases. What has been done about it? What has been done about it? And I was liking the CS when he was saying there is no point of bringing in a task force, because who else will you bring? In the education sector, we recycle every other time. Like when I was sitting in the task force report on school fees, and I said, oh no, let me look at the previous, because in 2008 there had been another task force, you know, and now we are putting up a task force in 2015. So I said I want to see the task force report of 2008, and all the list of people that sat in Edgar Gashukia report are the same people that were sitting in the 2015 report. And I'm like, what kind of a thing is this? You know, why are we now sitting again to say what we said? Why can't we hold people to account? If the report was given to the Ministry of Education, who was responsible for implementing that report? Why haven't they implemented that report? I'm telling you, it is only in the education sector where people are not held to account. Nobody is held accountable for anything. They will blame the politics. They will blame the unions for why we have not implemented this. But ask them, what tangible steps have you taken? And at what point did the union block you to doing this? I think it's becoming something different, and I think it is time Kenyans demanded a lot of accountability, because in the education sector is the highest spender of taxpayers' money in this country. So we're being taken for a ride by a group of people sitting there just drawing salaries and not serving the interest of Kenyans at all. And when you are at it, the only person that gets targeted is the CS, because he can be taken to parliament and we'll oust you or something like that. How about other people? We've got the CS, we've got the Director General, we've got directors. In fact, the secondary school we are talking about has got a director and so many other people sitting in there. Can people please show? I wonder about this performance contracting that people talk about. Okay, what are they benchmarked on? What do you say you will deliver? If last year we had unrest, this year the intensity is even more. Tell us what you're doing. Then why are people still keeping you there? You know, I think it's a desperate situation, because we can't continue this way. We just can't continue this way. We're saying we don't have funding, but we just can't manage. We have now brought an entire institution to its knees.
It's definitely an ongoing...
school is no more. So and then there's the other thing, and our politicians, you know them very well. They'll now be coming very swiftly to pledge that you're going to rebuild the institution.
And we'll wait and see for it.
Let's put Kenyans' money into good use. Let's hold people accountable, and let all of us speak in one language. I know it is not in the fiber of a politician to stand up and say, let parents build. Why? Because those parents have votes. But we are not going to have leaders of that caliber leading this country. Can we be truthful? Can we call it what it is? And that is the only way that we shall move this country forward.
Thank you so much, Janet, from Elimu Yetu Coalition. Definitely a lot to talk about, and you have expressed your very strong views, and we definitely thank you for that. It's a very serious issue, and I think the conversation will definitely just continue.
Exactly, yes, and of course you can continue with this conversation. This conversation we'll continue to have. Hopefully we won't have any more unrest. We're not anticipating that, but of course we'll continue having discussions about the education sector, and you can also continue talking to us using the hashtag for breakfast. I will go to a musical break now, and also when we return, of course, there will be Cheche, David Makali, and Mutegi Jao will be handling a very hot, interesting topic. So we want to keep it Cheche and start getting ready to tweet and get on board that conversation as well. Now though, Carlos Kiba.